Jedburgh's a sleepy wee town, nestled on the edge of the Scottish borders. It's soaked in history and tradition, with an 11th century abbey, Mary Queen of Scots house, and an ancient jailhouse, all making it quite popular with the tourist and as a retirement town with the older generation. It's timeless and quiet, or is it? Some say Jedburgh's got a darker side, a side that only comes out at night. A noisier side. Some say things are getting out of control. Some say youths are taking over. In fact, some would say it's a case of
right as well.
But who is the real mob? And who really rules in Jedburgh? We went to the archives in Hoyk to do some digging.
So here we are in Hoyk, and we're going to go into the library and look at the newspapers and see where all this started in Jedburgh about the antisocial behaviour.
Back in October 2006, a visitor to Jedburgh wrote a letter to the Sun Reporter complaining about the young people in the town. The paper printed the letter under the headline, "Haste ye back, not when there's mob rule in Jedburgh."
On the occasion we walked along the riverbanks and up the town to get a meal in the marketplace where it was our teenagers on benches and they appeared to be indulging in alcopops and other beverages. We returned to the guest house about 7:30 and there was a group of teenagers, roughly 20 to 30, which got higher bigger within the night. And then in the morning he found his car windscreen wipers had been snapped.
The headline, especially the mob bit, seemed to stick and prompted a series of replies from all sections of the community. Some agreed there was a problem, whilst others seemed to think that the whole thing was being blown out of all proportion. Well, this is the Provost's response.
Insisting that they're not on the rampage. Claims that tourists will think twice before stopping overnight in Jedburgh because of the mob rule by rowdy local teenagers have been dismissed by Town Provost Len Wise this week. Writes Mark Entwistle.
It was first brought to my attention when I read the tourist's letter in the paper, and he made the statement that said that the youth had damaged the mirror of his car when actually he'd only seen the night before he didn't see anybody damaging his car, and that was quite annoying, and that was giving the youth of the town a bad name, so it really annoyed me to see that, so I felt I had to reply to that. There's a perception that if there's a load of kids, there's a load of trouble, and it's a wrong perception, and it's unfortunately one that people get nowadays.
2 primary school children wrote a letter using some very strong language and offering some extreme solutions.
Just saying unfortunately this behaviour was towards tourists and we thought that was disgusting. These regular visits had to endure the rotten, violent behaviour that left our residents at Queen Street under house arrest.
What do you think about that reaction?
Overreaction.
We started to think that it was maybe a case of those who shout the loudest get their voices heard, so we decided to widen the net.
Well, I just treated it as a one-off. I just thought it was like he'd had a negative experience, but I didn't see that as a true reflection of what goes on in the town. So then it was a surprise when it kind of snowballed into a series of letters going backwards and forwards, and it did become a kind of them and us thing. And I thought that it got a bit too emotive, and then it wasn't really reflecting what it was really like.
It's actually an alright town. You basically just hang around the street, just mucking around with your friends and try and keep yourself to yourself, really. There's not a lot to do, but you make the most of what you have got.
I think the media, you're right, Janice, really, should be very, very responsible for things like that. They're very manipulative. They are. It sort of sells the paper, we all know, don't we,
How do you achieve balance and fairness in your reporting?
Always, 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 if you're a reporter, always you try and get both sides of the story. So if somebody tells you one thing, you've got to check what they've said is true, or if it's an opinion, you would definitely go to somebody they're either criticising or whatever and try and get another side to the story.
Some of the stories have kind of demonised young people and have portrayed young people in a largely negative light. And I know that from my experience of working with young people, this isn't a true picture of who they are.
Bad news always sells, and that's part of it, going back to the media.
Yes.
And what we don't hear about in Jedburgh are those that are doing a great deal of good and so on. We just don't hear about because it's not newsworthy in a way.
I think we've all got a part to play. I think probably even the Youth Project in sort of promoting more positive images of young people and more positive stories of young people.
We spoke to a local shopkeeper to see if getting to know a young person changed his views.
First impressions, well, before he worked, you just really saw him on the street, and he was a bright, bubbly character. Always kicking a football, always plenty to say, chirpy, but never ever saw a bad side of him. Always, happy, smiling faces. Once he got in and doing a job, he was a small lad, but he's got a big, big heart. And whenever he finished one task, it was, what do I do next? What do I do next? Is that okay? Did I do that one all right? And Fraser's always, he's keen to learn, he's full of enthusiasm, he's an excellent timekeeper, and he is an all-round good lad.
Well, when I do my job properly, I feel proud because I know that I've done well.
So getting to know young people can change perceptions. We went to see if people on the street felt the same.
What do you think about the young people in Jedburgh?
I think the majority are quite good. It's like every town, you have your good and your bad ones.
Fine in general. Young people all over are good.
Nothing wrong with the young people in Jedburgh. Very nice.
There's obviously a problem in every area, but there's a minority, I would suggest, and the great majority are probably law-abiding citizens.
Well, in my experiences with the young folk, up to date I've never had any problem with them at all, so I know there are problems in the town, but you'll get that in most towns, I think, and I think we're pretty lucky here.
Don't understand why the older folk can't get on with them. They don't cause any problems for us, never caused any problems for us.
The bad publicity that's been coming
Yeah,
up.
well, you see, it's very negative, isn't it? The thing about it seems to be all one-sided. Has anybody actually asked the young people what their views are?
And in general, what would you say is the attitude of older people towards young people?
Just bad, and the moan about it's been on the streets, but there's nowhere else for us to go. Some of them look at you like a piece of dirt.
Because you can't go in the street without anybody like looking at you, or you can't go in the street good. Like you can't have a good night out.
Say if we're playing my football down at the bussy, or some adults walking past with the dogs, they'll go and tell us to go to the Astro and that, but sometimes the Astro's always full with other people because they've already booked, and we can't book it for every single night we want to go.
Do you know what? I just think they should give us some respect.
For them not to phone the police as much. How they do. We just sit there and the police just come.
The legislation is quite clear about what antisocial behaviour is. Antisocial behaviour is basically a person engages in antisocial behaviour if they act in a manner that causes or is likely to cause alarm or distress to another individual. Running through gardens, trapdoor run, just generally congregating on street corners and causing a general nuisance.
I actually live just off on the square in Jedburgh here, and I see what the youngsters get up at night. They're actually quite a lot, and they're bored, rotten, they've nowhere to hang about properly. And they have got the youth cafe, but that's limited in numbers and that, and a lot of them want to kick a ball, and they want a decent place for this. So they haven't got it. So unfortunately, one of the open areas they use is the square and that, and I can see that annoying some adults, but at the end of the day, they're not doing anything unlawful.
But then I wouldn't go out at night, and I wouldn't go down to the bus shelter where, well, I wouldn't care to go down to the bus shelter. I've been down once or twice in the evening, but I don't go now to catch a bus because the bus station's full of young people, and I'd rather not go and sit there.
So again, when the neighbours start talking about each other, the perception is we've got a major problem of youth antisocial behaviour, and they can all share in their experiences at that time. So the perception is and becomes that youth are responsible for the vast majority of antisocial behaviour.
There has been a problem on Friday night and Saturday night with them using the church porch.
Children below 16 have caused a lot of damage around Mary Queen of Scots House.
But I'm making an assumption it's young people, I must admit. It could be anybody.
The actual reality, however, though, is that when we look at antisocial behaviour across the Scottish borders, that the issues relating to antisocial behaviour connected to youths are probably only a quarter of the whole of antisocial behaviour which is actually committed across the borders wide area. And Jedburgh is no different to that. When we analyse the figures in Jedburgh, it's quite clear that the Jedburgh figures are only, for antisocial behaviour, only a quarter of those are committed by youths. And what the term is youths is people under 16.
The recording of antisocial behaviour has only been going on for the past 2 years, so it's impossible to compare things with the past, but some people we talked to felt things were getting worse. Are they?
How different would you say things are these days?
Oh, vastly different.
A lot noisier now than what they were long ago. And the kids are no feared, they'll give as much cheek as possible. We wouldn't dare.